We get so focused on what we're trying to deliver, the strategy, the goals,
Mhm.
the objectives, that we just dive in and start doing that. We start taking
Right.
action. We forget to spend time on the how, which is, wait, how do you want me to show up? How do we want our relationship to be? If I need to challenge you, Charlene, what's the best way to do that? Or if you
Right.
need to give me feedback, Charlene, let's talk about the how I want to receive it. If I'm seeing something you're not seeing, what's the
Mhm.
best way to share that with you? We're talking deep conversations about relationship building. Then, as you and I jump into delivering on the strategy, the goals, the objectives, you and I are aligned. And if we get out of alignment, we can recognize that in each other, jump back into that alignment, and have the honest conversations and not wait for a performance review to give feedback. Or I would never challenge Charlene because she's my leader. I can't
Mhm.
imagine that. Well, listen, if you're doing your job well, you should be able to challenge. So we give each
Mhm.
other permission to do it, and then we tell each other how, and we
Mhm.
take the guesswork out of the relationship.
Welcome to Underrated to Unstoppable. I'm Charlene Wheeless, your host. In this episode, I'm joined by Nicole Bianchi, keynote speaker, leadership expert, and author of Small Brave Moves, for a real and resonant conversation about leading with courage and showing up as your full self. We talk about trusting your own voice, challenging culture without creating chaos, and how bravery isn't always loud. It's often layered and deeply personal. Nicole shares how she helps leaders drop the mask, reclaim their ethos, and lead with clarity and heart. And stay to the end. Her story talks about how she talks to her kids about love and worthiness, and it will stay with you. Trust me, you'll want to write it down. Let's get into it. So, well, thank you for agreeing to be on my
Yes,
YouTube
I'm
series. I
excited.
appreciate it. This is it's been so much fun because it's really all us in conversation. Certainly I want to talk about what you're doing. I want to talk about the five tough talks, those
Yeah,
things, and and then, of course, the last question is always, how did you know when you were enough?
yeah,
That's the question to ask. And for some people, they're still working on it, and that's okay too. The idea is that, so many people spend so much time not thinking that they're enough, and they think they're alone. And so one of the reasons why I wanted to do this was to show people that from all walks of life, people struggle with this. And
yeah,
so to not feel so alone when
yeah,
when you're doing this, and also, to hear different people's stories, I think helps people a lot, as well. And
yeah.
so that's really kind of what this is about.
I love it. I did some research after you reached out. I was like, oh, this is great. And
Right.
I think, and I don't think that you are enough is a one-time thing in our life. And that's when you ask that question, I'll go, I can
Right.
think of three. I'm not going to spend time on the three. I'll spend time on one of
Right.
the three, but that's
Hmm.
happened three times at
Right.
pivotal moments where I've really had to. So I love where you're heading with this, and when I think about bravery and what I think about
Hmm.
around small brave moves, it's like you're making this accessible to so many people. Yeah, like
Right.
helping them think differently. So
Right, exactly. And and not feel alone. So we're already recording.
okay.
I turned on the record. So
Yeah.
one thing, well, and one I forgot to tell you, and I should send you a copy of it, is in my last newsletter that I wrote, I actually put a little blurb in about your book. Uh,
Oh, I would
yeah,
love it if you
about the small
shared
brave moves. So I'll have to send that
it.
to you.
Yeah.
You can see it, and
Well,
and linked it to Amazon. So hopefully, if people say, "Hey, I want to see what this is about," they can go straight there.
thank you so much. I'll
Uh,
tell you, you're going to see Jess, my marketing director, is putting together a piece on with our picture and stuff from the
mhm.
Impact 11 and about, being able to give you physically the book and your the
Oh,
so you'll see something coming
uh-huh.
up on our site as well. So thank
Oh,
you
that's
so much. I
fantastic.
appreciate you.
Of course, of course, of course. I'm impressed that you can have a marketing director, by the way. I have not gotten that far.
Well, she just started April 1st, and I'll
Uh-huh.
tell you, the momentum change in having everything in one spot versus trying to
Right,
have somebody over here do social for this much and this
right.
that over here. The momentum I've created because of it, it was like
Mhm.
the timing was right. Good
Yeah.
for you. That's awesome.
So tell me when Small Brave Moves came out. When did
That
that?
was Yeah, that was April of 2021 is when
Okay.
Bravery Moves came out.
Mm-hmm. Great. And then so then when did you then put out Five Tough Talks?
September of 2023.
Okay. All right. So really you worked on one, it published and you started working on the other one. And so where did the idea of both of them come from?
The one thing I kept seeing in the leadership groups, the C-suite
Mhm,
leaders I was working with, whether it was teams at retreats or
mhm,
leadership development programs I was being asked to put together or one-on-one coaching, was that they could learn all the skills and tools that they
mhm,
needed to while we were together. And
mhm.
actually being able to go back and implement it and go
Right.
back to their culture, go
Mhm,
back to their, and I realized that the one key thing they were missing was bravery. It was the missing element. And so how do you, and bravery can be so big. And I'm starting to see over the last couple of years, the word courage is in a lot of people's
mhm.
values, right? The company
Right.
values. But they
Mhm,
really don't know how to make that actionable on a day-to-day basis. So how do you take this big, like, oh, courage, it's so big, and bravery, and
mhm.
make it into something more accessible to all?
Right.
That's where I came up with, okay, small, brave moves. And
Mhm,
through my research, I found that the 9 mindsets, behaviors, and habits that leaders really needed to be braver in the work they were doing,
mhm.
these are the 9. And then they're able to, even with a fraction of some of them, you can make
Mhm.
small, brave moves. But if you really, and naturally with 9 mindsets, behaviors, and habits, some will come more naturally, some
Right.
will be more difficult. There's always 2 or 3 where people are like,
Mhm.
that's the one. Those are the ones I really need to grow and develop and
Right.
stretch
Okay.
into.
Mhm.
And so that's where I came up with it, just to, again, make bravery accessible to all and help the leaders
Right.
realize you can acquire these skills and tools, but you have to be brave enough to go actually do it.
Right, right. Yeah. And I talk about courage a lot, and it's really how do you get the courage to do what you need to do, right? Because that's, I think, where there's bravery or courage, a lot of times we just don't have it or can't tap into it. So how did you come up with nine? What's magical about the nine?
Those were the 9 that just kept coming through the research. Those were the 9
Okay.
top to the top where it was like,
Hmm.
this is it. You've got to start. And it's in a bit of a journey. So the
Hmm.
first one is authentic self, right? If you're not going to
Right.
be your most authentic self, well, it's hard to be brave when you're not. It's the
Right.
one story I tell, and you'll appreciate this, Charlene, is when leaders go through and take an assessment, they'll sometimes ask, like, do I take it as I am at work or do I take it as I am
Right.
at home? And I
Hmm.
laugh because I'm like, well, aren't you the same person? And that's got to be exhausting being, but
Right.
they move into their adaptive self at work,
Hmm.
which
Hmm.
doesn't allow them to be brave enough in the work that they're doing.
Right, right. And I was going to ask you when you said that about authentic self, and I talk about a lot about authenticity as well. But what do you do when you're in environments that value homogeneity more than they do uniqueness and authenticity?
And where I have leaders start is getting really clear on what is your, what's your purpose, what's your ethos, what are your values? Because so many times the leaders will just point to the companies and they're in general alignment.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, I can do that. But they've never
Right.
really taken the time to get clear on what is my purpose? What am I set out in this world to do? What are my ethos? What are my non-negotiables that I want to live in? And then I bring them through into building their leadership philosophy. And once they start building their leadership philosophy and being
Hmm.
able to articulate that, they're able to stand in their more truth. And then when they're working in situations like that, they're able to use sound bites to really challenge some things in a very productive way or have the brave conversations, right? That
Right.
to make the ask or to have the what's
Hmm.
going on. So teaching them skills to do it not in a disruptive way, but a way that really honors pieces of that, but can challenge where they need to be. And at the end of the day, you have to figure out, is that the right environment for you? Can I be successful and operate to my
Hmm.
fullest in this environment? And if I can't,
Right.
then that's another decision. That might be a moving on conversation I need to have at some point in time. But
Hmm.
there's a lot of times you can, if you come at it the right way, you can shift how the culture thinks.
Right, right. And so how do I agree with you on this. And, I think that a lot of people take jobs that sound good to them, but they don't think about fit,
Mm.
right? And And I used to say, fit matters, but it doesn't necessarily mean one size fits all. But sometimes it does, right?
Mhm.
And so, how do we get people to look beyond just, hey, this job sounds great. They're going to offer me the right amount of money to, is this a place where I can be myself and therefore come fully, to work and do the work? Because much like you just said, I think about how much energy it takes to be adaptive before you've even started your job, right? Before you've even dug into the work. So how do we get people to just think more about um, uh, the fit? And then I have a follow-on for that, but let's take that one first.
Oh, it is such a great question because you said it so well. Like they look at the compensation, that's a fit. And then the rest of it falls to the bottom of the list. So
Mhm.
here's where I would flip it. I would start with whatever your ethos or values are and
Mhm.
develop interview questions that you have for the company against those because
Beautiful.
they're assessing you for a cultural fit, right?
Mhm.
If they're interviewing you well, they're
Mhm.
assessing for a culture fit, a fit, but
Mhm.
you should be coming with those questions to see if they're a
Right.
fit for you as well.
Mhm.
And are you? So one of my my Enneagram number is 8, which is
Mhm.
challenger. So
Mhm.
I have to be in environments where I'm able to challenge thinking, process,
Mhm.
decisions so that we can drive stronger results. And I've worked in an environment where that wasn't a fit. In
Mhm.
fact, my leader, I think I wrote about this in Small Brave Moves, but my leader said, Nicole, my job is to come up with the ideas. Your job is just to write them down. Now think about
Wow.
that. And
Wow.
I'm at a director level in this
Right.
Fortune 300 company. So I'm at
Mhm.
a leadership level. And he
Right.
said to me, and it was very clear they didn't value the creativity or the challenger
Mhm.
side of me. And so, I had to make a decision on, and for me, I ended up moving on out of that because I didn't see being able to really operate at my fullest in that
Mhm.
role. And so the next one, when I went to interview for my next role, I really thought about what is most important to me? What do I need to be able to do? And I
Right.
asked questions back that would
Mhm.
answer those questions for me.
Yeah, and I don't think that enough of us think about the fact that, the company is interviewing us, but we should also be interviewing the company, right? We tend to be so focused on, I need a new job or I want a new job or whatever it is that we don't, that we overlook some of the things that are going to come back up. And I know, and I love your viewpoint on this. I know in my career, and particularly, and I imagine a lot of people who were, in my shoes, you're a double minority, a lot of industries, it would be hard to find a fit, right? And
Mhm.
and that's just kind of the fact of the matter. And so early in my career, I decided that, I was going to be a trailblazer. I was going to go into companies who don't have people who look like me or have my kind of personality. And I was going to make it safe for other people like me to then come after me, right? That's kind of always been that part of my ethos. But in that process, I didn't realize that I was paying a pretty high price for doing that, right?
Mhm.
And so, how do you, if you have any thoughts, on it, how do you balance that? Or can you, or do you just have to say, because we all stand on the giants of shoulders who came before us, right? And so
Yeah.
do we just say, well, yes, it's hard. Yes, it hurts. Yes, I might have a negative outcome, but if this is what I'm trying to do, I have to be willing to pay the price.
Mhm.
Or is it that I need to set boundaries? Or, I don't know. I don't know. But, if you keep bringing the same thing, nothing changes,
Mhm.
right? So people have to be brave enough to be the change. Does that
Yeah.
make any sense at all?
It does because so many small, brave moves go unnoticed, unrecognized, and
Mhm.
uncelebrated, sometimes for years to come.
Mhm.
And so you don't, and so I was in a similar situation to what you're talking about, where I was on the forefront of they called it a merger, but it was really an acquisition. They were
Right.
acquiring us, and
Mhm.
and our technology, everything was, we were 20 years in advance of them, and they wanted to unwind things. And so my job, I was like, my job by the CEO was like, go there. I would
Mhm.
go every other week and I would go with persuasion, influence
Mhm.
too, so that we can keep so many of the things that we were trying to do. And I
Right.
would come home. So on Monday, I would fly out hopeful, like
Mhm.
ready to go and
Right.
going to take the hill. And then Friday, I would come home miserable, feeling like I
Right.
hit my head on a brick wall every
Mhm.
single day. And I remember thinking to myself, until I came home and my husband said to me one time in a very loving way,
Mhm.
miserable to be around.
Oh.
Right. And
Mhm.
it didn't hit me. I was like, okay, that was my cost. You were talking about
Right.
cost. That was my cost.
Mhm.
And I realized, oh my gosh. So when I go challenge and do those things, what I love your boundaries. What are that? How long am I willing to do this? And I do that up front
Uh,
as I'm heading into situations. What am I? And so I do a little self-coaching and asking myself
right. Before you
questions.
go.
And
Mhm.
at what point do I need to pause and reevaluate and say,
Mhm.
okay, I've done everything I think I can. If I go further, what's the cost? What's the benefit? What
Right.
am I, right? And am
Mhm.
I willing to do that? And I think if we're very, I am much more self-aware. I feel like my emotional intelligence is much stronger now
Right.
than it was back in that situation where I was just like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get this done.
Right. Right.
Really some self and this is where I think it's a great opportunity to have. I talk a lot in small brave moves about a swim buddy, like
Mhm.
somebody that can help hold you accountable and help coach you through those moments
Right.
when you're up against that, because I was very alone and isolated, and
Mhm.
I didn't realize the toll it took
The
on
toll.
me, the
Right.
significant toll on my health, my
Mhm.
relationships, everything. We all pay a price when we
Right.
run that mountain, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I think we either become unconsciously blind to it,
Mhm.
or we compartmentalize it, but at some point everything comes home to roost, right? And
Yes.
and you just have to recognize that. So let's talk a little bit about five tough talks.
Yeah.
So give us one or two of those. I don't want you to give us all of them because we want people to go out and get the book. So
Yes.
tell us about the five tough talks and how you came up with it and everything.
So I found, again, in working with leaders, C-suite,
Mhm.
that I was being asked to come in and help coach in situations where people were not having all the conversations that they should have had early on. And now we're at the being better conversation, and it's
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh, moment where they're not sure what to do, and they know they're going to let down that other person. They haven't given them the warnings and all of that.
Mhm.
And I found that all the conversations that we need to be able to have and have really well with as a leader and with our teams in the business starts with these five tough talks. And
Mhm.
so the first one, I'll unveil the first one just to give you a little
Mhm.
teaser. It's the how we
Yeah.
work. It's the how we work. So we get so focused on what we're trying to deliver, right? The strategy, the goals,
Mhm.
the objectives, that we just dive in and start doing that, right? We start taking action.
Right.
We forget to spend time on the how, which is, wait, how do you want me to show up? How do we want our relationship to be? If I need to challenge you, Charlene, what's the best way to do that? Or if you
Right.
need to give me feedback, Charlene, let's talk about the how I want to receive it. Or
Right.
if I'm seeing something you're not seeing, what's the
Mhm.
best way to share that with you? I mean, we're talking deep conversations about relationship building.
Mhm.
Then, as you and I jump into delivering on the strategy, the goals, the objectives, you and I are aligned. And if we get out
Uh,
of alignment, we can recognize that in each other and
mhm.
jump back into that alignment and have the honest conversations and not wait for a performance review to give feedback or,
Right.
um, oh, I would never challenge Charlene because she's my leader. I can't
Mhm.
imagine that. Well, listen, if you're doing your job well, you should be able to challenge Charlene.
Right.
Be able to
Absolutely.
challenge you. So we give each
Mhm.
other permission to do it, and then we tell each other how, and we
Mhm.
take the guesswork out of the relationship.
Right, right. Which I can see, so easily how that can benefit the relationship because have the conversation when you're not in conflict, right?
Yes.
Because once
Yes.
you're in conflict, then it becomes really hard to have that conversation.
Right.
Right.
And if they do get in conflict and they're having one of
Mhm.
the later five tough talks, I always tell them it's never too late to come back to the how we work. If you
Mhm.
even have to start with a, hey, what's going on? Come
Right.
back to this and make sure you've shored up those questions so that
Mhm.
you're really clear. And again, if I know how to show up for you, then
Mhm.
the rest becomes now we're focused just on the work, right? And not
Right.
the behavioral side of what we need from each other. And again, so many leaders will just guess, right? Like, or
Mhm.
if
Right.
they'll either guess or they will say, they will give it to you like they want to be received.
Right.
They
Absolutely.
default to how they want, right? So
How
like,
they
I
want it.
like
Yeah.
feedback, shoot it to me straight, right? Clear and
Mhm.
concise. Doesn't everybody? Well, no,
No.
no,
No.
no, they
In
don't.
fact, most people don't.
Right. So
Right.
you have to learn, you have to be
Mhm.
curious and ask these questions and get into this deep conversation. So I show in the how we work how to do it one-on-one, how to do it with your team so you get the team aligned and agreeing. And then if you're a new leader, which one of the most difficult leadership transitions is to go from peer to now I'm
Right.
your leader, how do you
Mhm.
create those new agreements and get aligned on what that needs to look like?
Right.
We script out all those moves in the books.
Mhm.
You you can have you can lead brave conversations.
Right, right. Yeah, I have some clients where, we did not have the benefit of your book, but in talking, and doing some different assessments and things that I'm a part of, I said, let's establish some rules on as a team, how do you want to have important conversations? How do you even want to signal when you need to have an important conversation? And so we actually came up with some thoughts and some key words of, if your colleague says this to you, that doesn't mean, no, wait, I don't have time. I have to do this, this, and this. That means stop what you're doing and go have that conversation.
Right.
And I'm sure you say it much more eloquently in your book, than I just did right here, Nicole. But I love the idea. I love the thinking of it. Before I get to, my final question, which I love so much, I know that you are a certified speaking professional. So tell us what that means, because I
Yes.
know it's not an easy thing to do. So I know that.
It is not. So actually, less than 16% of speakers in the world hold this
Mhm.
designation. And it's a year long, although you're doing a lot of the work in the years before, but it's a
Mhm.
year long evaluation
Okay.
through a board, through the National
Mhm.
Speakers Association, where they evaluate videos of you speaking and
Mhm.
quality, right, of you speaking and really living out the NSA values, in addition
Mhm.
to a spreadsheet of like 500 events that I've spoken at,
Oh
right?
my goodness.
And referrals and
Mhm.
things like that. So it's a difficult process that you have to go through that has different phases, and you either
Mhm.
advance or you don't advance through
Right.
that. And so once you're able to successfully advance through each one of those phases in this year-long process, you are awarded the certified speaking professional, which out in the world then for meeting planners and people book
Right.
speakers, they know that they are at a level of where I can
Mhm.
trust that this speaker will come in and do
Right.
an transformational job for me and my
Mhm.
audience that I'm trying to showcase. So
Right.
thank you. Yes, I'm excited
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Now, how do you get, because we certainly have speakers who listen to this as well, unless you've been doing it for 15 years or 10 years or something, how do you get 500 in order to apply for your CSP? Or is it you just have to wait until you get there?
Yeah, so actually there's a minimum salary threshold as well
Okay.
as then the number of clients. And so you can't, what I love about the process is you can't
Mhm.
just go do 500 free ones and,
Ah,
and then
okay.
they spot check and go through and we'll
Mhm.
and so, I think we'd have 20 or was it 30 fill out in-depth surveys on us and the
Oh,
quality
wow.
of
Mhm.
what we did and what we delivered. So you're trusting your
Mhm.
clients to
Right.
right to continue to cheer you on. So they
Mhm.
choose 30 from there and then
Mhm.
a deeper level evaluation. So
Right. Well,
yeah.
that's great. That's great. And congratulations, because it really does not sound like it was easy. And
No, thank you.
Yeah. So, Nicole, you've done all of these great things. You've got two books. You've been speaking. Of course, we met years ago, right, at Heroic. Um, and so one thing I even noticed back from then, you have just always had this confidence about yourself. And sometimes we look like we have it and we don't. And for some of us, it's just something that we're always, striving for. Um, Tell us about when you knew that you were enough.
Yeah. Ah, it's such a beautiful question. I'll tell you, there's been three pivotal moments in my life, and I think it's because there were big stages that I was going through where I had to pause and really go, wait, you are enough. Like, this is okay.
Mhm,
And the one that I'll share with you was when I was developing a lot of leadership content
mhm,
using other people's later leadership frameworks and things that are
mhm.
right that it's not uncommon for clients to come to me and go, "Oh, will you teach Simon Sinek's The Why or
Right.
The Coaching Habit by Michael Bungay Stanier," which I love. I love all
Mhm,
their models. And I started developing my own content around this.
mhm.
And I'll never forget having that content resonate, right? Like either the mindset, behaviors, and habits or the 5 TikToks. And then I realized, oh my gosh, you are enough. Like your content is enough. Blessed
Mhm,
release using everybody else's and just focus on
mhm,
what your content can do. And once I had that mind shift, I shifted my mind and I trusted where I was heading. And I said, I'm going to trust the decisions I'm making. I'm going to
mhm.
continue to do my own content and I'm going to grow it. And I had to have that talk with myself
Right.
to release all the rest of it. Then I was like, okay, you are enough. Gosh darn it. And I'll
Mhm.
never forget being up on that masterclass stage one time with Michael,
Uh-huh.
him making a comment about, Nicole, you kind of look like Brené Brown. Like you're giving me Brené Brown vibes. I love her, right? She's done some
Right.
incredible research work on bravery, but
Mhm.
I have a very different viewpoint. I
Right.
work, I've worked inside of, with two Fortune 300 companies. I have real
Right.
life story after story after story that's developed the
Mhm.
frameworks. So it's a different viewpoint. But I remember in that moment when he said that to me, like really even second guessing myself, like, am I acting like a me too? Or
Ah.
is my content really, so I will
Mhm.
continue to get, and you will as well as you grow yours, that
Mhm.
I have no doubt will be continued to be challenged on whether or not we're enough,
Right.
work is
Mhm.
enough, and I have to constantly be really intentional about my mindset and guarding that and protecting that around the work that I'm doing and not letting everybody else's opinions or
Right.
thoughts or feelings or reactions.
Mhm.
I can't let them guide me. I can let them
Right.
inform me, but I can't let them guide me.
Right. So, one, congratulations, because we all know how hard that is. I think in some ways what you've told me, it started a little bit with external validation, right, of something of the work that you were doing. And so you got that and that helped you to believe, which is great. And that yes, your work is enough. Your work is good enough. It doesn't need to be someone else's, right? And I think that's really powerful. But go a little deeper for me and tell me when it was, and maybe it was that same moment when you knew Nicole was enough, not Nicole's work, but when Nicole was enough.
Mm. I think I'm gonna share the phrase face it till you make it because
Okay.
so many people talk about faking it till you make it.
Hmm.
Remember when in that moment or even the other two moments, I felt this where I just was like, I know it's me, it's not my work, but it's how I think, right? It's how I think,
Hmm.
it's how I feel, it's how I move through this world. And
Hmm.
it's not in a traditional way. It's in a very, it can be a little non-traditional for some people. And I realized being able to just, when I trust myself, the rest of it goes away. And so I think that's the number one thing that really in that moment I was like, when I just the non-negotiable for me was I'm going to trust myself.
Okay.
Trust. And I'm going to also trust that I'm going to screw this up from time to time.
Hmm.
When I do, I'm not going to beat myself up.
Right.
To I'm gonna, I might have a little pity party for a few minutes,
Right.
or maybe a day, I will see.
Hmm.
But then I'm gonna figure out what I have to do to grow from that experience. And so I think
Right.
it just comes down to like once I decided to really trust who I am
Hmm.
moving through the world, it opened more doors than it closed, which was interesting.
Ah,
That's a
okay.
result, right? That's a result of that.
Hmm.
And I was like, so does that answer your question?
No, it does. It makes me wonder, so once you began to trust yourself, do you think that you were putting a different kind of energy out than you were before? Because I'm a real big believer in it's about the kind of energy that, not everything, but a
Right.
lot of it is what kind of energy are you putting into the world? Because that's the energy that you're going to get back.
That's exactly it. When you use the word confidence, when you said, hey,
Hmm.
was confidence, it's not this, again, fake it till you make it confidence, like, oh,
Right,
it's really being confident of who I am and comfortable in my own, and again, trusting
right.
myself. I guess one of the results is it comes off as confidence. But that doesn't mean I still don't deal from time to time with self-doubt, imposter,
Right.
things like that. But I catch that. I just heard this the other day. I catch when that narrative starts happening and I send it to
Mhm.
voicemail. That was my,
Ah, uh-huh.
I was like, that's a great way to think about it.
That's,
So, right,
yeah,
like send it to
put it to
voicemail,
voicemail, which
right?
we never check anyway these
Right,
days,
right.
right?
There's no
Right.
space for that.
Right.
And I do think the confidence is big. One of
Mhm.
the mindsets I talk about in Small Brave Moves is about hope-driven mindset. And I think it's really more that than confidence. The hope
Right.
mindset is that positive expectation for a better future.
Hmm.
In all the conversations I get to have, like with you, Charlene, like I know
Hmm.
this conversation is going to lead to something more for us in different,
Right.
right? Like I have this positive expectation of a better future. I don't invest in conversations I don't think that's going to happen, right?
Right.
Or that that's not productive or
Hmm.
that, right? Same way with Five Tough Talks. Like if I'm
Right.
going to lead a brave conversation, it's because I believe that there's going to be a positive outcome as a result.
Right.
So I think
Right.
it starts with hope-driven mindset. And I think on the
Mhm.
outside, it shows as confidence.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I think what came to mind too, as you were speaking, and it's something that I decided to leave behind when I left the corporate world, which was, most corporations in my experience, I can only speak from my experience, operate on this scarcity mentality. And
Yes.
I always operated on an abundance mentality. And when you talk about hope, to me, hope is akin to that abundance mentality. I think that there's enough for all of us. We don't have to be fearful that, Nicole's going to get all the speaking engagements and there'll be nothing left for me. And I'm going to be eating beans and macaroni and cheese for the next year. It's like, but companies very much, and I don't know if it's part of trying to be competitive or what it is, but it's really living in that there is enough for everybody in abundance. And of course, we're both now in Impact 11. And one of the first things I heard them say, and that's how I knew I was going to love the organization, is they said, we operate on an abundance mindset, that there is enough for everyone. And I,
Mhm.
I think that is just such a strong and really meaningful mindset for people to have because it's almost like everybody has been forced into this scarcity mindset. It's like life will have you living in scarcity, right?
Mhm.
And I just think the abundance is the way to hope, right? You have to believe that there's abundance.
I do too. And I feel the same way with you around the abundance piece. And I think when we show up in the world that way, and we have that mindset and the mentality, more flows in and I'm able to give more. So I just
Right.
actually had a call 2 hours ago recommending two speakers for
Hmm.
an event to somebody where I could have certainly self-advocated, but I wasn't going to be like the right fit. So I was like, oh,
Right.
two speakers I can connect you with
Right.
perfect for this. And I
Mhm.
know by releasing that, more is going to come in a very
Right.
different way. And I'm going to be like, oh, this
Mhm.
is so cool. Like how neat is this, right?
Right.
So I feel the
Right.
same way. And I love it. I love
Yeah.
I love Impact 11. I love the right people in the right room all
Mhm.
together sharing in that.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really something special. But so are you, Nicole. So it's I'm so great that so thankful and grateful that our paths crossed and then crossed again, which is really something. Because it's just been so great just to see how you've grown. Thank you for the shout out in your book. I thought that was just so that meant so much to me. So thank you. And gosh, I hope you continue to just do the great things that you're doing.
Thank you so much. Well, I appreciate you writing, being a part of the intro for Small Brave Moves, because when you spoke about choice versus chance, it
Right.
really hit home with me. And I was like, we do have a choice to be brave, and we shouldn't
Right.
leave it to chance. So you dropped those pearls of wisdom, and I took a ran with it. So I just deeply appreciate that as well, and cherish our friendship as well. So thank you.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing you again. Thanks again for being on the show. Sorry for my dogs coming in and out.
Oh, I loved the one that was jumping in the
Oh,
back.
did you see? I
Yes, I was
know.
trying not to laugh. I was like, okay, stay normal, stay normal, stay normal.
Oh,
But
I
that's
know.
so
I know. As you can tell, I do not edit out my dogs or
true.
anything when I do the show because this is life,
That's
right? And,
perfect. I love it.
and it's like, hey, this is what happens. Sometimes your dogs come in, sometimes they don't. And well, I was talking to a gentleman last week, and my red poodle, my amaretto is her name. She came up onto my shoulder and did this long, dramatic stretch like a diva. You know? And I told him, I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. It's dinner time. I better go."
That is awesome. I
Yeah.
love it. I
Yeah.
think it's
You
great.
just never know what to expect. So anyway, thank you for your time. I so
You
appreciate it. And I look forward to
too.
seeing you at some time later this year because I know we're going to be at some events together.
We will for sure. That's
Yeah,
awesome. Thank you, Charlene.
absolutely.
Okay,
Bye
talk
bye.
later. Bye.